Have you ever stopped to think about this? Why is it that trying to look rich so often seems to be the one thing that stops people from ever actually getting rich? It's kind of weird, right? Well, today, we're going to dive right into that fascinating and often pretty counterintuitive gap. The space between the appearance of wealth and the reality of building it.
So, first things first, just for a second, picture it. When I say the word wealthy, what's the first image that pops into your head? For most of us, that image is probably shaped by what we see plastered all over the place, every single day.
Yeah, I'm guessing it looks a lot like this, doesn't it? First-class flights, designer brands, five-star restaurants, you know the drill. Social media has created this non-stop highlight reel of a high-consumption lifestyle, and it's so easy to start thinking, yep, that is what success is. But is it really?
And this brings us to our first big idea, the performance of success. We're going to explore how this pressure to look wealthy isn't just about, showing off. It goes way deeper. It's a full-on performance driven by some really powerful social forces. Psychologists actually have a term for this whole thing. They call it impression management. And look, this isn't just about vanity. It's about a really fundamental human need to manage how other people see us, to gain their approval, their admiration, or just to feel like we belong. Let's be honest, we're all curating our image to some extent. And this quote, wow, it just perfectly nails the logic behind it. A counseling client from one of our sources put it this way. And it's such a common belief, isn't it? That if you just project this image of success, then real success is just going to follow. It's the whole fake it till you make it philosophy, but apply to your finances. The problem is, there's a serious price to pay for that. So let's talk about that price tag. Let's really explore the consequences of this performance. We're going to shift gears from what people do to why they do it. Because the psychological cost of maintaining this illusion, it can be absolutely devastating. We're talking anxiety, insecurity, and this constant, draining need for validation. So what's really driving all this? Well, it's a vicious cycle. You hop on social media and boom, constant comparison. That leads you to start tying your own self-worth to these luxury items. Before you know it, you're sacrificing genuine long-term stability just to keep up a short-term image. And underneath it all, a lot of the time, it's a fragile sense of self, just chasing likes and admiration to feel like you finally belong.
This quote from another client just hits so hard. I'm always exhausted from pretending. I mean, just think about that. It perfectly captures the immense mental and emotional drain of this constant performance. It's like having a job you can never clock out from, and the worst part is, it doesn't pay you back.
Okay, now here's where it gets even more interesting. You'd think that even if it's costly, this performance at least works, right? That people will respect you more? Well, the science says not so fast. In fact, it can actually backfire, big time.
Let's define a key term here from a major academic paper on this topic, conspicuous consumption. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple, and it was actually coined over 100 years ago. It just means using luxury goods and services not for what they do, but specifically to signal your economic status to everyone else. Think designer logos, flashy cars. Yeah, you get the picture. And what's really fascinating here is the data. In one study, people played a game where they had to decide whether to cooperate with a partner. Now, when their partner was all about signaling wealth and status, the conspicuous partner, only about 38% of people chose to cooperate. But when the partner was modest, that number jumped all the way to 54%. That is a huge difference, and it tells us something profound about how we instinctively react to these signals. So here's the bottom line, the real kicker. The perception is that signaling high status will earn you respect and influence. But the reality, what the research actually shows, is that it can make you seem less warm, less trustworthy, and as we just saw, less cooperative. The very thing you're trying to achieve, social approval, can get totally undermined by your strategy. How crazy is that? Which brings us to our final, and maybe most surprising part of all this. If looking rich is so counterproductive, what do actually rich people do? Well, let's open up the real millionaire's playbook.
This quote, it comes from the landmark book, The Millionaire Next Door. And you have to understand, the researchers were absolutely shocked when they started interviewing actual millionaires because they didn't fit the stereotype at all. What they discovered was that true wealth is often totally invisible.
Check this out. For the typical millionaire they studied, their annual taxable income is less than 7% of their total wealth. So what does that actually mean? It means they aren't living off some huge salary. Not at all. They're focused on building assets, things that grow in value, not on generating a ton of cash flow just to spend it on a lavish lifestyle.
And how about this one?
This completely debunks the myth of the flashy millionaire car. Less than a quarter of the millionaires surveyed actually buy brand new cars. The vast majority, they buy used because they understand that a car is a depreciating asset, not a status symbol.
So let's just summarize their habits. Frugality is a cornerstone of their life. They meticulously budget and control their expenses. They often live in totally normal, middle-class neighborhoods. And most importantly, they get far more satisfaction from owning appreciable assets, like businesses or real estate, than they do from displaying a high-consumption lifestyle. It is a complete inversion of everything we're taught to believe.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us? It means we really need to redefine our own definition of wealth. We got to shift our focus from performance and appearance to stability and, peace of mind.
Here's the big takeaway. True wealth isn't about the car you drive or the logo on your bag. It's the financial stability that lets you sleep at night. It's the integrity of living within your means. It is the freedom and peace of mind that no luxury good could ever buy.
And so I want to leave you with this one last powerful question. The next time you feel that pull to buy something to project an image, just pause for a second and ask yourself, what feeling am I really chasing? Because so often it isn't the item itself. It's a feeling, acceptance, confidence, or a sense of belonging. And those are things that have nothing to do with what you own and everything to do with who you are.